Review of What Science Offers the Humanities by Ed Slingerland, 2008. Ed Slingerland is by profession a student of the humanities. His primary field of study is ancient Chinese thought, but his book consists of advocacy for a consilience of the sciences and the humanities. He is, by temperament, a physicalist. Quote, "It is important to realize that any truly interesting explanation of a given phenomenon is interesting precisely because it involves reduction of some sort, tracing causation from higher to lower levels, or uncovering hidden correlations." End of quote. He refers to his goal as vertical integration, the humanities to be stacked in layers of emergence atop another stack of the material sciences, the whole pile resting on a foundation of quark and atomic physics. In his super-reductionist vision, each layer is to look for its meaning in how it is accounted for by those below it. At the same time, he acknowledges fully and fairly, as something he experiences, that dualism is a more accurate and more comforting record of that experience. I found his testimony in favor of common sense very disarming. His chapter 6, Who's Afraid of Reductionism? Confronting Darwin's Dangerous Idea, is a 47-page account of his passage between the Schiller of common sense dualism and the Charybdis of a Darwinian-fronted material monism, a wonderfully drawn Pilgrim's Progress. He begins with 7 increasingly reductionist propositions you are invited to rate your comfort with. The final proposal, which is what he will defend and obviously subscribes to himself, is: as products of a blind process of replication and selection, human beings as a whole, body and mind, differ only in degree of complexity from robots or machines. We, like everything else in the world, are causally determined, purely physical systems. End of quote. How much comfort does Slingerland expect to bring us through his account of his philosophy? Quote, "If you are not disturbed and somewhat repelled, then I have not done an adequate job of explaining this material." And what are we to assume from his even making the effort? Quote, "Thinking under this understanding, then, is not a ghostly disembodied process, but rather a series of brain states, a series of physical configurations of matter, each causing the next in accordance." End of quote. All the common sense he uses in evaluating the merits of common sense desert him when he's evaluating the merits of material monism. Quote, "Everything we know about how the world in general works suggests there is no place for non-physical causation." End of quote. Really? Didn't his conscious experience while writing those words suggest a possible place for non-physical causation? He endorses the usual reassurance that we needn't worry about being limited by determinism because the world is too complex for our futures to be elucidated. How then can he be so sure we are determined? If it's an untestable hypothesis, it cannot be proved, and so is not science. Darwinism clearly does seriously threaten traditional religious beliefs and conceptions of the self. He says, "We are convinced that Darwinism is the best account we have for explaining the world around us, and therefore that human beings are physical systems, and the idea that there is a ghost in the machine should be abandoned. The revelation that our nature, like our origin, involves only purely physical processes is beyond question." Quote, "Just as children come eventually to realize there is no such thing as Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, so will dualist adults eventually grow up intellectually, realize the truth of physicalism, and come to see such songs and sentiments as childish, wishful thinking, beautiful and once quite comforting, but not a proper component of a mature worldview." My conclusion: you're either of one temperament or the other, physicalist or dualist. There can be no compromise. We can arrive at the truth only by voting.